When I returned from my last mission in Afghanistan after 25 years of military service, with my uniform still smelling of desert dust and the Bronze Star Medal weighing on my chest, I found my husband David sitting in the living room that I had furnished with my major's salary. He didn't even wait for me to take off my combat boots before saying with a coldness that cut deeper than any shrapnel, "Margaret, I want a divorce. I met someone younger, someone who was here. Someone who doesn't have scars and nightmares." I stood there, my military backpack still on my shoulders, looking at the man I had sent $3,200 every single month for 25 years, the man who promised to wait for me at every goodbye, the man who was now discarding me like I was obsolete military equipment. For a quarter of a century, I had served my country with honor. 3 tours in Iraq, 4 in Afghanistan, countless classified missions I couldn't even discuss with him. I had lost comrades, carried bodies of soldiers who were too young to die, made decisions that cost me sleep every single night. And throughout all that time, I had kept our life running. From every paycheck I received as a United States Army officer, $3,200 went straight into the joint account. Over 25 years, that added up to $960,000. Almost $1 million I had sent from battlefields to home, thinking I was building our future. But while I was coordinating operations in combat zones, managing platoons, saving lives, and risking my own, David was building a different future, a future without me. "She's 28 years old, Margaret," he continued, as if her age was some kind of trophy. "She laughs at my jokes. She's here every night. She doesn't wake up screaming at 3 in the morning. She's normal." Normal. The word echoed in my mind like the sound of mortars. I wasn't normal because I had spent 25 years defending his freedom to sit comfortably in that house, in that living room, on that sofa my money bought. I wasn't normal because I had seen things he would never see, made sacrifices he would never understand. I slowly took off my backpack and placed it on the floor. Inside was a photo of our unit, taken 3 weeks earlier in Kabul. Of the 24 soldiers in that photo, 5 would never come home. I had written letters to their families. I had held their hands as they died. And now I was hearing that I wasn't young enough, pretty enough, normal enough. "How long?" I asked in the voice I used to give orders on the battlefield, firm, emotionless. "Margaret, that doesn't matter." "How long, David?" I repeated, and something in my tone made him step back. 2 years, he finally admitted. "I met her 2 years ago." 2 years. While I was on my second to last mission in Afghanistan, while I was leading operations that saved American lives, while I was sending $3,200 per month to him, he was building a relationship with a 26-year-old woman. I went to the dining room table, the same table where we had signed our marriage certificate 27 years ago, 2 years before my first enlistment, and sat with the military posture that never left me. I had planned this moment during the entire 14-hour flight home, but differently. I had imagined arriving, embracing him, finally resting after all these years. Now I needed to execute a completely different protocol. "Sit down, David," I ordered. It wasn't a request. He sat, clearly uncomfortable with the command tone I rarely used at home. "Over the last 25 years, I began, pulling a notebook from my backpack. I always documented everything, military habit. I served in 7 different conflict zones. I received 3 Bronze Stars, 2 Meritorious Service Medals, and 1 Purple Heart for combat injury. I managed operations involving hundreds of soldiers. I literally saved dozens of lives. I trained 3 generations of new officers." I paused, letting the numbers sink in. During those same 25 years, I sent you every single month $3,200 from my salary. Not once late, not once questioned. That's $960,000 in direct money, not counting the combat bonuses I also transferred, which add up to another $178,000. We're talking about $138,000 that went from my account to our joint account. I saw the color drain from his face. He hadn't done the math. In addition, I continued, consulting my notes, I paid for this house in full with my re-enlistment bonus in 2015, $340,000. The car you drive? Gift from 2018, $45,000. The trailer you use for fishing? Gift from 2020, $28,000. Your hernia surgery that insurance didn't fully cover? $12,000 from my account. I did the mental math once more, just to be sure. Adding everything up. Monthly transfers, bonuses, gifts, medical expenses, home improvements, your online cooking course you never finished, the vacation you took in Hawaii while I was in Baghdad, we're at $734,000. $1,734,000 that I invested in you, in us, in our future. The silence in the room was absolute. And now you're telling me you met someone younger 2 years ago. Coincidentally, right after I made that large transfer to our joint account. $85,000 combat bonus. Remember, David, you said you wanted to invest in home improvements. He blinked nervously. I had hit the bullseye. How much of that money did you spend on her, David? On gifts for her? On dinners? On the apartment I'm sure you rented for her because she's not living here? Margaret, I can explain. No, I interrupted, raising my hand with the authority of someone who commanded platoons in combat. You can't. There's no explanation for this. But what you will do is listen to me. I opened my military folder, always carried one, part of protocol, and pulled out several documents. This here, I said, placing the first paper on the table, is the deed to this house. As you can see, it's only in my name. I paid for it in full with my military bonus. Legally, this house is 100% mine. I saw his eyes widen. This, I placed the second document, is the contract for the car you drive, also in my name because I paid cash with my military salary. Third document, bank statements. As you'll see, our joint account was opened by me with my military money. Federal law protecting members of the armed forces is very clear about assets acquired with military salary during active service. Fourth document. This is the record of all transfers I made to you over the last 25 years. My military lawyer, yes, David, veterans have access to specialized attorneys, has already reviewed everything. In case of divorce, there's something called dissipation of marital assets. It means if you spent our money on a mistress, you owe me reimbursement. Finally, the last document. And this is a copy of my new financial power of attorney, completely removing your access to my bank account, my military pension, and my veteran benefits, effective since yesterday, when I processed the document remotely from base before boarding. David was white as paper. Margaret, we can talk about this. Now you want to talk, I observed with icy calm. Interesting. In the last 2 years, how many times did we really talk, David? How many times did you ask about my missions, about my soldiers, about the bombs that exploded near me, about the nights I had to make life or death decisions? He didn't answer. Let me tell you something about war, David. The worst part isn't the gunfire. It's not the explosions. It's not the constant fear. The worst part is betrayal. When you trust someone to cover your back and discover they're not there. When you sacrifice everything for a mission and discover the mission was compromised from the beginning. I stood up, and instinctively he stood too. Automatic military respect. I survived 25 years of combat zones, I said, looking directly into his eyes. I survived ambushes, explosions, firefights. I carried wounded soldiers for miles under enemy fire. I made decisions that cost me sleep every night, and you really thought I wouldn't survive you? I picked up my backpack. Here's what's going to happen now. You have 48 hours to get out of my house. You can take your personal clothes and hygiene items. The car stays because it's in my name and I paid for it. The trailer stays for the same reason. Everything bought with my military money stays. Margaret, don't be ridiculous. Where am I going to stay? The question almost made me laugh. I presume with your 28-year-old girlfriend. After all, she's normal, young, and has been here for the last 2 years. I'm sure the apartment you rented for her with my money has room for you, too. I saw the shock on his face when he realized I already knew about the apartment. I'm 52 years old, David. I have premature gray hair because of combat stress. I have shrapnel scars in 4 different places on my body. I sometimes wake up screaming because I dream I'm back in Fallujah or Kandahar. My hands shake sometimes when I hear loud noises. I'm not perfect. I'm not young. I'm not normal. I put the backpack on my shoulders. But I am a decorated veteran of the United States Army. I am Major Margaret Ann Thompson. I served my country with honor. I saved lives. I led with courage. And I have far more dignity than you will ever have. I headed toward the door, then turned one last time. Oh, and David, about that 28-year-old girlfriend of yours. I hope she has a good job because you're going to need it. My military lawyer will contact yours about the dissipation of assets lawsuit. Good luck paying back the $85,000 you spent on her with my combat money. I left the house and got into my military Jeep parked in the driveway. My hands were shaking, not from fear or sadness, but from pure adrenaline. During the entire flight back, I had planned this conversation. I had reviewed every word, every document, every move. Like any good military operation, success was in the planning. I drove to the only place where I knew I would be welcome, the city's Veterans Association headquarters. When I entered, still in uniform, several familiar faces turned. Sam, a 75-year-old Vietnam veteran, was the first to approach. "Major Thompson," he greeted with military respect. "We heard you were returning today. Welcome home." For the first time in 14 hours, since I stepped on American soil, someone welcomed me home. "Thank you, Sam," I replied, and to my surprise, I felt my voice fail. I hadn't cried on the battlefield. I hadn't cried when I took shrapnel in my thigh. I hadn't cried when I lost 5 soldiers in 1 week. But there, in the safety of that place full of people who understood, I finally felt something break inside me. Hey, Sam guided me to a chair. "What happened, Major?" When I told the story, quickly a group of veterans gathered around me. There was Martha, Navy veteran who had served in the Gulf. James, from the Army, 3 Afghanistan tours. Carolina, Air Force, transport pilot. All of them had similar stories. All of them had returned home and found betrayal instead of welcome. "My ex-husband emptied our savings account while I was on my 2nd tour," Martha shared. "Spent everything on online gambling and betting. When I came back, he had the nerve to ask for more money." "My ex-wife left me for my brother," James added bitterly. "I found out when I saw the photos on Facebook. They didn't even have the decency to hide it." Carolina shook her head. "At least you guys found out quickly. I supported my husband and his 3 adult brothers for 7 years before realizing he never intended to work. To him, I was just a monthly check." For the first time since I stepped in that house, I didn't feel alone. "What are you going to do now, Major?" Sam asked. "I'm going to execute my plan," I replied, and felt the military determination return to my voice. Phase 1, remove the hostile from the perimeter. Completed. Phase 2, protect assets. In progress. Phase 3, rebuild and advance. Martha smiled. "Very military answer. I like it." "Do you have a place to stay?" Carolina asked. "Because my house has a spare room. It would be an honor to host an officer." The generosity caught me by surprise. David had a roof over his head for 25 years thanks to me, and he discarded me. This woman, whom I had known for only 3 months before my last mission, offered her home without hesitation. That night, I went to sleep in Carolina's guest room. The bed was comfortable, but I had slept in much worse. Tents in the desert, improvised bases inside military vehicles. Compared to that bed was luxury, but I couldn't sleep, not because of the divorce. I had already processed that. It was something else. For 25 years, I had sent money home thinking I was building something. Now I realized I was just financing my own replacement. I picked up my phone and did something I hadn't done in years. I accessed my personal bank account, the account David didn't have access to, the account where my military pension went, my benefits, my emergency reserves. $480,000, almost $500,000 I had saved over the years. Bonus money I didn't mention to David. Savings I made eating base military food instead of spending on restaurants. Automatic investments from my pension. For 25 years, while I sent $3,200 per month to David, I had secretly saved $1,600 per month for myself. Not because I distrusted him, but because of military discipline. Always have a backup, always have an exit route, always have emergency resources. I smiled alone in the dark. David had no idea how much money I really had. He thought the $134,000 I spent on him was everything. He didn't know about the $480,000 that was completely mine. The next morning, I woke up at 5:30 as always. Military habit never dies. I did my exercise routine, 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, 5-kilometer run, while the sun rose. I returned to Carolina's house, sweaty but energized. "You're insane," Carolina commented, drinking her coffee. "First day home after 25 years and you're doing PT?" "Routine maintains sanity," I replied, serving myself coffee. "And I have a busy day. I need to visit my military lawyer, the bank, and my pension administrator." At 8 hours, I was in the office of retired Major Harrison Williams, attorney specialized in military and divorce law. He had reviewed my documents remotely, but now we needed to formalize everything. "Major Thompson," he greeted me with a firm handshake, "I read your case. It's one of the most flagrant dissipations of assets I've ever seen. Your husband spent $85,000 of your combat bonus on a mistress while you were in a war zone. This won't go well for him. How much can I recover?" "Potentially the entire amount, plus penalties. But here's the interesting part. Since you paid for the house in full with your military salary and the car, and basically everything of value, he has no right to almost anything in the asset division." "And the military pension?" "Completely protected. Your veteran pension is untouchable. He has no right to a penny of it. Federal law is very clear about that." I felt immense relief. The military pension was my security, my guarantee of never depending on anyone. "There's something you should know," Harrison continued, opening a folder. "I did a basic investigation on your husband as you authorized. David Robert Thompson has a credit card debt of $67,000 accumulated over the last 2 years, 3 cards at maximum limit." My blood ran cold. "How is that possible? We had a joint account. I should see those transactions." He opened cards in his name, using your address but a different P.O. box to receive statements. It's technically legal since he's using his own credit, but morally repugnant, I completed. He was getting into debt while I sent $3,200 per month? Exactly. And here's the best part. In a divorce, debts accumulated during marriage are normally divided. But debts accumulated for frivolous reasons or in extramarital relationships, those are the sole responsibility of the person who created them. I smiled for the first time in days. So he'll leave this marriage with nothing and still owing $67,000. Precisely. Poetic justice, if I may say. We spent the next 3 hours reviewing all documents. Divorce petition, dissipation of assets action, total protection of my pension and military benefits, eviction order from my house. Each paper was signed with the same precision I used to sign military orders. "One question, Major," Harrison said when we were finishing. "Why are you so calm? I see people going into deep depression in less serious situations." I thought for a moment. "Major Harrison, Over the last 25 years, I commanded soldiers in combat. I saw comrades die in my arms. I made decisions where a mistake meant lost lives. I operated under constant pressure in hostile environments where the next second could be the last. I paused. A divorce? A cheating husband? That's Tuesday. I've been through worse. And unlike an ambush, here I have total control of the situation. I have resources, planning, and the law on my side. For me, this isn't a tragedy. It's just another mission to complete. He nodded with respect. You're one hell of a soldier, Major Thompson. From the lawyer's office, I went straight to the bank. I needed to transfer all my accounts to a new institution, one where David had no presence, no information, no point of contact. Mrs. Thompson, the manager, Mr. Paulson, received me with a professional smile. How can I help you? I need to close all my accounts here and transfer everything to another bank. He blinked, surprised. Can you tell me the reason? We've had your account for almost 30 years. The reason is that my husband has access to information here, knows employees here, and I need total financial privacy during my divorce process. Immediate understanding appeared on his face. I understand perfectly. I'll process this with maximum priority. Your accounts will be closed and funds transferred by tomorrow. Before leaving, I couldn't resist. Mr. Paulson, over the last 25 years, how many times did my husband come here? He checked the system. I see here that he came monthly, usually right after your military salary deposit hit. He made cash withdrawals, usually between $2,000 and $3,000. My stomach turned. For 25 years, every month, David withdrew up to $3,000 in cash from our account. Money that didn't appear on bills, had no trail, couldn't be traced. Money he spent freely without me knowing. Thank you very much for the information, Mr. Paulson. Leaving the bank, I called Harrison. I just discovered he was withdrawing up to $3,000 in cash every month. For 25 years, that's another $900,000 unaccounted for. The silence on the other end was long. Major Thompson, this completely changes the case. We're not talking about $1.7 million. We're talking about potentially $2.6 million you invested in this marriage, and he's leaving with nothing. That night, I returned to Carolina's house exhausted but satisfied. Phase 2 was practically complete. Assets protected, accounts transferred, documentation in order. How was your day? Carolina asked, serving dinner for both of us. Productive. I discovered the situation is worse than I thought, but also that my legal position is even stronger. Did you hear from David? 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. I showed my phone. Interesting progression. Started with, we need to talk, evolved to, you're being irrational. Went through, I'm going to sue you, and now it's at, please, can we resolve this like adults? Carolina laughed. Desperation is showing. Yeah. Apparently he visited the house today and discovered I changed all the locks. You changed the locks? First thing I did yesterday right after leaving. Hired a 24-hour locksmith. Basic security measure. We ate in comfortable silence. It was strange, but good. For the first time in 25 years, I was having dinner with someone who genuinely cared about me as a person, not as a source of income. Can I ask you something? Carolina broke the silence. Sure. Do you still love him? The question caught me off guard. I stayed silent, really thinking about the answer. You know, Carolina, I think I haven't loved him for a long time, maybe years. I just hadn't realized. In the last 10 years, our conversations were transactional. I need money for this. When will you deposit? Is there a bonus coming? It wasn't love. It was a financial arrangement I had confused with marriage. And now I feel free. Like when you complete a difficult mission and can finally rest. It's not exactly happiness, it's more relief. Relief from not having to pretend anymore. That week, David's world began to crumble in ways he didn't expect. First, he discovered he couldn't just continue living in the house. On Thursday, I received a call from him, and this time I answered. Margaret, the neighbors said there's a process server looking for me. What's happening? You're being officially notified of the divorce proceedings and eviction order. You have 48 hours to remove your personal belongings from my property. Margaret, be reasonable. Where am I going to live? Frankly, David, it's not my problem anymore. You had 25 years of guaranteed shelter thanks to me. Time for you to figure out how normal adults get housing. You're being vindictive. No, David, I'm being fair. You want to divorce me for someone younger? Perfectly, you're right. But you don't have a right to my house, my car, my money. Those are fruits of my work, my sacrifice, my military service. But what about Amanda? I told her that... Finally a name for the girlfriend. What did you tell Amanda, David? Guilty silence. Let me guess. You told her that when you divorced me, you'd get half of everything. The house, the money, maybe even part of the military pension. You painted a pretty picture of a comfortable financial future with her, didn't you? More silence. Too bad, David. Maybe you should have consulted a lawyer before making promises. Federal law protects military assets. You're not getting anything. Outside, in the parking lot, Amanda looked on the verge of tears. I didn't know, she began immediately. He told me you were separated for years, that you were cold, distant, that the marriage had ended long ago. He said you agreed to the divorce, that it was amicable. I felt something strange, not anger, but almost pity for her. When did you meet David? I asked. 2 years ago. I worked at a cafe he frequented. He was kind, funny, always left generous tips. We started talking and he started spending money on you. She nodded, ashamed. Expensive dinners, gifts. He rented an apartment for us. He said he had a good business, that he was successful. He never had a business, Amanda. For 25 years, the one who supported this life was me. Major of the United States Army. Every penny he spent on you came from my military salary, earned in combat zones. I saw the color drain from her face. I didn't know. He said he was a businessman, that he had investments. When I asked why he never went to the office, he said he worked from home, online. Amanda, why are you here? Because yesterday he showed up at my apartment, the apartment he paid for, with 2 suitcases saying he was going to live with me. He said you threw him out of the house and he had nowhere to go. And when I asked about all the money he always had, about his house, he admitted everything. She took a deep breath, trembling. He admitted that you're a war veteran, that you paid for everything, that he never worked, that he lied to me about everything. And then he said he needed me to support him now, that it was my turn to take care of him. I couldn't help it. I laughed, a short, bitter laugh. Let me guess, you said no. I threw him out, and he got furious, said horrible things, said I was a gold digger, that I was only with him for the money. The irony... We stood in silence for a moment. Amanda, I'm going to give you some advice, not because I like you, but because I was young once, too. When someone tells you a story where they're the perfect victim and the ex-partner is the complete villain, be suspicious. Real people are complicated. Real relationships are complicated. Stories that are too simple usually hide many lies. She nodded, tears finally falling. I'm sorry. I really didn't know he was really married. I never would have... I believe you, I interrupted. And you know why? Because you're here, having the most difficult conversation of your life when you could simply disappear and pretend none of this happened. That shows character. What do I do now? You're young. You have time. Learn from this and move on. And stop renting apartments for men you barely know. A sad smile appeared on her face. Yes, ma'am. After Amanda left, I went back inside and found Sam waiting for me. Was that her? He asked. It was. And she's more his victim than my enemy. He lied to her too, used her too. The difference is she's young and can start over easily. I'm 52 years old with 25 years of destroyed marriage. But you don't look destroyed, Major. I thought about that. He was right. You know, Sam, I went through Fallujah. I survived 3 IEDs. I saw things that will haunt me until the day I die. After all that, a divorce? It's just another battle, and I've always been good at battles. In the following weeks, the divorce process moved quickly. David tried to hire a lawyer, but when the lawyer saw the case, no assets with debts, trying to sue a decorated veteran who had impeccable documentation, he charged a retainer of $15,000 that David didn't have. David then tried to represent himself. He showed up at the first hearing with papers printed from the internet about matrimonial rights, highlighted in yellow. I showed up with Major Harrison, full military uniform with all my medals, and 3 folders of organized documentation. The judge, himself a Vietnam veteran, took 15 minutes to review the case before deciding. "Mr. Thompson," he said with evident disapproval, "you are requesting half of the assets of a marriage where you didn't contribute financially, spent conjugal money on an extramarital relationship, and accumulated significant debts hidden from your wife. Not only do I deny your request, but I order you to pay Major Thompson the amount of $85,000 in asset dissipation, plus interest and legal costs." David turned white. "But Your Honor, I don't have $85,000. "Then you'll establish a payment plan. Major Thompson spent 25 years serving this country in war zones, while you stayed comfortably at home spending her money. The least you can do is return what you dissipated." I left that courthouse with my head held high. It wasn't about the money. I probably would never see that $85,000. It was about recognition. It was about validation. It was about a judge, a veteran, looking at me and seeing not a disposable wife, but a soldier who deserved respect. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I was sitting in my new apartment, small but all mine, when I received an unexpected call. "Major Thompson, this is Colonel Martinez from the Veterans Transition Center. We received your application for the position of Women Veterans Counselor." I had applied almost as an afterthought, thinking maybe I could use my experience to help other female veterans. "Yes, Colonel. Thank you for getting back to me. Major, frankly, you're overqualified. 25 years of service, experience in 7 combat zones, impeccable record. But what really caught attention was your cover letter, where you describe your own experience of returning home and facing family betrayal." "Yes, sir. I thought it was important to be honest." "Honest. Major, it was powerful. It was real. It's exactly the perspective we need. Many female veterans return home and face similar situations, but don't have the resources or knowledge you had. You could make a real difference." "So, I'm hired?" "If you accept, yes. Salary of $78,000 annually, full benefits, and you'd work directly helping female veterans in transition." I hung up the phone and realized I was smiling. Really smiling. For the first time in months, 25 years of military service, a destroyed marriage, $2.6 million spent on someone who didn't value me. And now, at 52 years old, I was starting over. But I wasn't starting from zero. I was starting with experience, with wisdom, with $480,000 saved, with a lifetime military pension, and now with a job where I could make a real difference. I looked at the photo of my unit on the wall. 24 soldiers, 5 who never returned. I had taken an oath to protect and serve. That oath didn't end just because I had retired. My phone vibrated. Message from Carolina. "Dinner at my house today? Martha and James are coming too. We're doing a veterans BBQ. You have to come." I responded immediately. "I'll be there at 6 p.m. I'll bring dessert." This was my life now. It wasn't the life I had planned when I married David 27 years ago. It wasn't the life I imagined during 25 years sending money home. But it was my life. Authentic, true, free. That night, while laughing with my veteran friends, sharing stories and food, I realized something fundamental. I had spent 25 years fighting for a country. I had spent 27 years fighting for a marriage. Now, for the first time, I was fighting for myself. And unlike the other battles, This one, I was winning. 2 years later, I'm here, at 54 years old, writing this story. I help dozens of female veterans every year through my work at the Transition Center. I traveled to 5 countries I always wanted to see. I bought a small mountain cabin where I go on weekends. I donated $100,000 to organizations that help female veterans in domestic violence situations. David, I heard he's still trying to pay those $85,000. Amanda, interestingly enough, went back to college and became a social worker. She sent me a letter last year thanking me for the advice I gave that day in the parking lot. Some nights when I wake up with combat nightmares, when trauma still haunts me, I look around my room and remember. I survived war zones. I survived betrayal. I survived losing a 27-year marriage. I am Major Margaret Ann Thompson. I am 54 years old. I served my country with honor for 25 years. I received 3 Bronze Stars, 2 Meritorious Service Medals, and 1 Purple Heart. I'm not young anymore. I have scars, both physical and emotional. I wake up some days with joint pain. My mind sometimes goes back to battlefields I wish I could forget. But I am free. I am worthy. I am respected. And for the first time in my adult life, I belong completely to myself. When David told me he wanted someone younger, he expected me to beg, to fall apart, to accept being discarded after decades of sacrifice. What I said to him left him speechless. But it wasn't just words. It was a complete demonstration of strength, strategy, and dignity he could never have predicted. Because he forgot one fundamental thing. I'm not just a wife who can be discarded. I am a war veteran, and veterans don't surrender. We regroup, reorganize, and come back stronger. If you liked my story and know a female veteran who needs to hear she's not alone, share it with her. If you're a veteran going through something similar, know that there are resources, there is help. There is an entire army of sisters and brothers ready to support you. And you? Have you ever faced a situation where your strength was tested, where you had to choose between your dignity and the comfort of an abusive situation? I would love to hear your story in the comments. For more stories of overcoming, of strength, of veterans rebuilding their lives, like this video and subscribe.